All right, everybody, welcome back to the Street Parking Podcast. We're getting close to September, which means we are about to jump into our third and final focus series that we've been doing in 2025, building up to this idea of well-rounded fitness, creating ourselves into the bison, right? And our final series is going to be focused around your body, of course, but also adding in a very mental element in your mind. And we're calling it the Grit series. It'll be 12 weeks broken into 3 sections. And I've got Bill and Karianne in town to talk about both the Grit series as a whole and also to dive into the very first month, what you should be expecting for September. So when we were creating the year-long plan, and we were, okay, let's do 3 12-week series. And the coaches like all got together and were like, what's foundational for like well-rounded fitness? A lot of physical stuff comes out, right? It's like, well, you gotta be strong, you gotta have endurance. Like, what about skills? What about like gymnastics stuff? What about this thing? What about that thing? And for me, and I think, you know, you guys were part of those conversations and some of the other coaches, it was like, when we look out at our members and we say, what's missing? Like, what piece are they missing? You don't have to look very far to see like, oh, this person there's a switch that needs to be flipped. Like, they need to understand what intensity feels like, or they need to build confidence, or they need to. And so I'm super excited about this series. We did the September last year, like the Sisyphus Gauntlet, and you guys created that whole thing, and people really enjoyed it. So when you guys talk about grit, I know that can be like kind of like a buzzwordy thing to use, which I know Bill hates buzzwords. What in the 3-month, before we dive into September, in this 3-month period, what are we looking to develop, or what is the point of it? How is this going to help anybody?
Yeah, I mean, I think with grit, there's a book, there's all of this information. It's something that people talk about, and I haven't read the book, so like if I'm speaking, if this has already been defined, right on, but we're interested in like, what are the characteristics of somebody who has grit or of a gritty person? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like what we do with a lot of the mental stuff. And we've identified 3 skills that we would say when someone demonstrates having grit, they have this unique combination of perseverance, of resiliency, right? They're able to face challenges or failures and get back up, that getting back up piece. They're also very curious. They're able to step into new and challenging experiences that the unknown challenges everybody, but that curiosity allows us to step into that. And they have a certain ability to be present in hardship. Oftentimes in hardship that might not have the finish line within eyesight. So perseverance, curiosity, and presence, in our view, in our experiences, are really, really valuable skills that when we develop those sort of 3 legs of the tripod, what sits atop is this thing we call grit.
Yeah, you know, and I think like when you think of the people who are most gritty, like everybody probably has an example of someone in their life. I think it's one of the reasons that I was drawn, however many, 18 years ago, to like CrossFit in general, is because the videos back then, when you would see the people, like, oh man, these people are just willing to like suffer, willing to put themselves into these like unknown situations. And like, I think of like Coach Carlene is a great example where she'll just roll up and literally anything, you're like, all right, this is what we're doing today. And she's like, okay, cool. I mean, my wrist is messed up or whatever, but like, I'll change it up and I'll do it, and I'm down for it. Yeah. I think that this type of training, whether you identify more as like street parking or CrossFit or whatever, it's all very similar, has been around for long enough now that you can participate in it, but lose that element of what it was when it was new. Because we've all gotten so good at like pacing or knowing what weight to grab, or like, well, whenever I do wall balls, I do sets of 10 or whatever. We lose that element of going into something and just not knowing how it's going to go, or being willing to find out what happens if I XYZ. And I think that's kind of like what this whole thing is built around, is bringing back that element of curiosity and willingness to just have whatever happens happen. And I'm really excited about that. So there's 3 separate months. Do you want to go through what each, not like in detail, but like kind of identify or label each month so people have an idea?
Yeah, so September, we are going to focus on that perseverance element. And while we don't love to like talk about the negative side, you know, failure, I think has like a negative connotation for a lot of people. But in many ways, and for sure in fitness, if you're never experiencing failure, the question is like, are you really growing or, you know, getting better? So those workouts are really designed around your relationship to failing. You know, some of the examples like a beep test, like things that are set up for that is the point of the workout. And it's going to give you an opportunity to kind of, as Bill said, like rise again and like how you, how you interact with that experience. So that is the focus of the first month. And then the second month, do you want to talk about the second month?
Yeah, so curiosity is sort of what we're looking at. And we're going to play with some elements that have no movement relatedness, but we're going to mess with the clock. We're going to mess with
This is what I'm most excited about. I think this, when we first talked about, hey, we should do something around this, this was the month where it's like, are there things we can do with can we take the clock away? Can we mess with the clock? Because people in this culture, again, whether it's street parking, CrossFit, however you, a mix of both, however you identify, there's such an attachment to the clock and looking at the clock and starting the clock and finishing the clock and watching the clock. Like, so I'm really excited about that one.
Yeah, we are too, because it's, and it's a larger, you know, data as a whole, even like, what does my Whoop say? What is the continuous glucose, like the fitness world and data, what we've seen is, and we have the question when people ask us, what about the Whoop or what about the recovery score? We always say, does the subjective, meaning you, match the objective, meaning the data?
Well, and then the clock is like tied to your score too. Like if you don't have a clock, now all of a sudden, do I have a score? And it's, I don't know what the exact saying is, but there's a saying that says like what can be measured becomes the most important thing. And that's not necessarily the most important thing, but because it's measurable, people put it on the hierarchy, it's the most important thing because I can calculate it or I can track it. And now there are just way too many things that people can track and they're losing like actually feeling the experience or feeling this is how I feel today or this is how I felt about that or this is what I'm feeling in the middle of it. They're looking at their watch to tell them how I feel instead of just checking in. So I'm really excited for October. Okay, what about November?
Yeah, and then November is really exploring the idea of overwhelm. So one of the things that we think makes someone like have that ability to have grit is being able to come back to the present moment. Often like when we get overwhelmed, that can kind of stop us in our tracks. And the ability and the skill really to kind of come back to the present is one that we need to practice, we think. And I think a lot of people have this experience in workouts, long workouts, endurance workouts. Our mind starts to go to like the future, what's left, you know, making these predictions. But coming back into practicing just like being in that here and now is a really great skill to have. So a lot of those workouts are designed around the feeling of overwhelm, longer efforts.
Similar-ish to the Sisyphus stuff.
Yeah.
Different but similar. Like those ones, and I say that just because if you guys associate Bill and Karianne with, oh, well, for the next 12 weeks, I'm going to be doing this hour-long workout. You'll see some of that come in, but not until November. The rest of the workouts in September and October look on paper very much like a regular daily workout, but there are elements added in or taken away that change it mentally.
And even in November, there are like 4 workouts that are longer that are going to require people to make that time. But there are also workouts that aren't necessarily that long, but just the way they're set up and designed has that element of like, oh my gosh, is this ever going to end?
Or even just looking at it like, that's too long, like, or that's too much. I can't do that. That's
and that's the essence of overwhelm, right? It's this prediction that what I'm doing now I can't sustain,
or I won't be able to do this.
I can't do that. And it's like when people are overwhelmed, they're so fixated and bought into where they're not. But where you have to be where you are to do what you're doing to get to where you want to go. And so that's that skill. Some people express that through meditation or you know, whatever it might be. Can we come back into really where we need to do the work, which is in this moment, in this rep, in this phase of the rep, whatever that is. And that's again why the gym and why this community is so positioned very, just really beautifully to have these skills that also spill out into outside of the walls of the gym.
Yeah, and I think that's something also interesting about this series, because the workouts are workouts that could be programmed outside of this. This isn't really just like, oh, this is the only time you can practice grit. It's kind of cool to start seeing like themes, like, oh, maybe next February there's a workout that gets programmed just in the regular daily workouts. And you're like, ooh, that one reminds me of kind of like, a failure workout. This is a great chance for me to keep practicing this. So this is really like using these 12 weeks to like develop this skill set and practice so that you can continue it inevitably with your fitness journey.
And I think like people, hopefully what it teaches you guys is to look for those opportunities and to recognize the mental side and the mental hurdles or what you as part of your training. So you see people that you might consider to be gritty do this naturally. Yeah. Like an example would be when we did Project April this year, and I was like, I'm going to use the 35-pound kettlebells the whole time. And I actually don't know that it's a good idea, but it's more of like a mental challenge of how much slower I'm going to be and how much heavier they're going to feel than what I'm used to. Where it's not necessarily the best like physical fitness, but it's a month of I'm only using this. And so, but if you notice people that are very, very fit and people that have that element of like, man, this person just comes in no matter what's thrown at them, you'll see that they view the mental side as part of training, no different than going heavy, no different than going long, no different than practicing their skills. And I think that's something that people miss big time. And what happens is, regardless of what program they do or what version or what extra program from street parking they do, what they're actually missing is that, and until they see that as a skill that needs to be developed, they're going to keep hitting a wall in that way. So, okay, so September we've got failure and resilience / tolerance a little bit in there. Perseverance. October we've got, I call it Clocktober. You guys have a better name for it. October is Curiosity. And then November, we're looking at overwhelm /
presence.
Yeah. And the animal that we've used for this month, because Chris and I got very into like what animal represents, each one of these. And we've had the bear strength and we had the running of the wolves. And we chose the bighorn sheep because I don't know if you guys live in an area or if you've ever gotten to see, and if you haven't, you should definitely Google this bighorn sheep and the things that they can do. It makes no sense. Like, it doesn't look like gravity should allow this to happen. How they climb and scale these walls with their hooves doesn't make any sense. They're like leaping over these like cavernous, spaces that if they fell, they would certainly die. And you're just like, how do they do that? How do they believe that they could do that? Their body proportions should make this impossible. And they do. So it's the grittiest animal in my mind for sure. And so that's why we chose it. But let's dive in today to just September, because we're about to kick this thing off and talk about what they can expect for this first month. So we've already kind of talked about the workouts that are required for the badge or that are around this series are going to look, the Wednesday ones. So you're going to have a workout on Wednesday that's going to look very much like, when you at first glance, like a regular daily programmed workout. And then on Saturdays for this month, this won't be true in October and November, but on Saturdays in this month, there's going to be a workout that's repeated, very short, repeated every Saturday, where part of that is coming into something that you've already done that was really challenging and being willing to do it again a week later and again a week later and again a week later, not only to put yourself into that discomfort again, but to try to improve hopefully as you go. So do you want to talk a little bit about, maybe go with the Wednesdays first, and you don't need to say what they are, like they can see that when they come up, but the goals and kind of ways that people can think about it, or anything you want them to know about what to expect.
Yeah, I mean, the Wednesdays all have a little different unique twist to them as it relates to that failure piece. Like, some of them are designed like that is the end of the workout when you fail. Like, if you don't fail, you'll just be continuing this workout forever. So that's kind of the goal. So it's really just learning to find that sticky point, that challenge, like where's your threshold, and then whatever that is, like accepting failure as part of like, this is how I'm getting better. Some of them are a little bit of a twist, just, your relationship to...
Do you think people have a hard time with failure? And this is me, because I'm guilty of this now, because I come from previous years of training where I would just wreck myself so much that like now when I do a workout that's to failure, it's kind of more like until I don't really want to do this anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's where these...
Like, what are we looking for? Right. How are we defining failure?
Right. And I think some of these are like, they're going to bring you in that way. And it's all about like you being honest with yourself. So it's going to bring you to this place of honesty where you have to figure out like, am I just like, I don't want to do this anymore? Or where's like truly like, I can't continue this, either mentally or physically. And so I think it depends on where someone's at, but it's like shining a light on that and just taking a look at it. And maybe where someone's at right now is different than where they might be at a later point in their life. But really we're asking you to explore what it really is to have that experience of truly failing, not, I don't feel like continuing and I'm just gonna sort of let myself off the hook. So I don't wanna say it's a line between like quitting and failing, but there is that like little bit of a, just exploring it, not right or wrong, but it's gonna ask you to, nobody's gonna know that except for you.
Yeah, I think to keep it in my mind, it's like find your limitation and that's it. Because like we did a workout, we filmed a vault workout today. It wasn't part of the grid, but it was, the essence was still the same where I got to a point where like I was at the edge of my limitation. I mentally was wanting to go, but you know, the body also, it's this whole thing, right? Like the body will do what the mind wants. No, that's not true.
Always, yeah.
That's like not true. So find your limitations. These workouts are designed to guide you to reach a point where you're like, yep, this is my limitation. I have reached the end. And that's the whole point of like when somebody who's gritty, they kind of know where their limitations are and they know how to get there. And they step into that. And then of course on Saturday, we're having we're training behavior more than physiology.
Okay, so like some encouragement that I would give then, because we filmed DH and Salvi doing one of the workouts. It's like a beep test, and what that is it's similar. It's an EMOM. It's an EMOM, and you keep this thing going as long as you can last. It's not. It wasn't a death by.
No.
It was this is the amount of work you do it every minute until you can no longer do that, right? And I know for me, a lot of times what will happen is, and we saw this with both Salvi and DH actually, and they did a great job of demonstrating how to properly do it. But this is, again, just my personal therapy session with you guys, is normally what I would do is I would get to where I completed it and I knew that I wasn't gonna be able to complete it in the next minute, so I wouldn't do anything in the next minute. It's like, I knew I wasn't gonna do it, so I'm done. Instead of, I think what we're looking for here is, even if you only get literally 3 reps in the next minute, because the idea is that if you made it, you keep going. If you made it, you keep going. And so little things like that, be on the lookout for what you guys know you normally would do, or where you normally would check out or give up, and take it a little bit further. And so for me, I know it's like, well, I knew I wasn't gonna make it in the next minute, so I was done.
Which is, again, and these months are like themed, but that kind of goes back to also like the score. So there's like an overlap where it's like, it's not about the score. Even if those reps don't count in some made up land of fitness, like they count because you did something even if you didn't feel like it, even if it wasn't gonna be a completed round, you still had that push to like pick up the weight, try. And like that little bit is like moving the needle forward, just like for your own personal sense of self.
Or there's one workout that's coming up that has the word unbroken on it. And I know that there are just gonna be like 100 Facebook posts of what counts as unbroken. You know, and then people posting just giving it away. People posting their videos and saying like, well, that person wasn't unbroken because they stopped, or because they held the equipment in this position, or whatever. And again, people love rules. They love rules, and they love black and white thinking, and they love tell me exactly what to do and I'll do it, no more, no less.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so
it's like the gaming. It's like getting the answer right, I think, too. It's like people want to like get the A. They want like, did I do it right? And it's very hard to be like, well, what's right for you? People don't like that question. Like, well, I don't know, just tell me. So
tell me what's allowed.
Right. Tell me what to do.
And whatever you say is allowed, I'm going to do, probably even if it's unnecessary for me to do. Like, okay, so I'll just give it away a little bit. There's a wall ball workout where it's encouraged to do some wall balls unbroken. And as soon as Bill or Karianne say, well, it's allowed to lean against the wall, you're going to lean against the wall when you didn't even necessarily need to.
Right.
Exactly.
Right? Or you're allowed to wrap your arms around it, or you're allowed to. And so I think, and you guys can expand on this, I think what the goal would be is to make it the challenge that you need, not be like, well, I saw this person doing it, so I'm going to game it. That was a great idea. I want to do that. Versus like, no, I'm going to choose to do my version of unbroken or my version of hard that makes sense for me and my fitness level and what I'm trying to get out of this.
And I think that goes back to that, like finding your personal limits. Like, what is that for you? What is your limit for you? And that's a subjective, and it's relative, right? We say like that with intensity, like it's relative, like you can't really compare. So having these 3 months, and obviously we're talking about September, but really try to focus on like, keeping your eyes on your own paper, because like we're all like such different people that you can't really compare like where someone's mental grit is. Like you're having a different experience of life, so focus on your experience.
It seems like, what it would be again, because this is a skill, this is something that we're training, and every person is in a different place. It would be like saying, well, what weight am I supposed to use on a heavy back squat day?
Right.
And you're like, well, I don't know, like what weight,
so many questions.
How's your back squat? Like where are you at? And me seeing Bill and being like, well, Bill used 315. So do I have to use 315, or I have to use 315 because, and being like, but Bill's stronger than you and bigger than you. And so that's appropriate. And where this isn't like a body size, like you have to know and be honest about where you're at and push that limit to get anything out of it. Otherwise you're just gaming it and trying to check a box.
And I think that's one of the things that we've talked about is like just doing the workouts isn't going to guarantee you developed grit.
Right.
Like it's
going to be a good workout regardless.
Right. You doing the workouts, like you did a workout and maybe it guarantees some level of like better fitness, but you have to really, I don't want to say like buy in, but you have to have that intention and be willing to like, check in with yourself to really get the value out of these. And that's the difference, I think. And to your point, like getting a little bit farther away as people have gotten more accustomed to this style of workout.
Especially because so many of our members work out alone.
Right.
Like the over gamification or the like, I'm going to do it. The more than nothing, which is all great and is all so necessary for consistency. Like you cannot come in and there's a reason why it's not twice a week.
Yeah.
It's not every day of the month, but working out alone can, really heighten that. And just doing this type of training for a really long time, you get to know like, okay, here's the line where I'm not going to cross the threshold of being more than this uncomfortable.
Right.
And that's, I think, one of the things with these types of experiences or skills we're building is, self-mastery and this idea of self-mastery. But we can often be not necessarily in like this self-mastery thing, but rather like this self sort of ignorance by, I know where my limits are, I know what I can do, I know this, I know that, like I know myself. And it's like, well, you don't though. Because if there's one thing human beings are really, really, maybe one of the best things we're good at is putting limitations upon ourselves and believing them. So yes, we want to know ourselves, but the way in which we really know ourselves is to act differently, is to do different things, is to have experiences where we're like, oh, that's how I responded in this or that. So to get to know yourself, you have to do something that you might not know you could do. And so it's this relationship between the known and the unknown. And for people who do work out alone, that's where we're sort of providing this external sort of guidance, this path of do something you normally wouldn't do for example, with the wall ball thing. If we were to have zero, if this was to be outside of the grit series, nobody would do this workout the way we're encouraging you to do it. And that's by design.
Yeah.
So like if the first thing is like, I can't do that, I'm not going to do that, that's stupid. It's like, well, that is like, that talk about like a ceiling, that's a really low ceiling you just put on yourself.
Right.
So like maybe have that thought, step back from it, get your shit together.
Right.
And then go back into doing something that you don't know if you could do. That's
and it's like an expansion. I think that's one of the things we've talked about a lot with people is like, even as you like age or do fitness a lot, like things can get very narrow because you already like, I know this, I know that, I've done all these workouts, I've already done it. And like your fitness, your perspective, like it can kind of narrow, and we're trying to like get some expansiveness. And so yeah, buying into that and doing things not because it's maybe the most effective or the quickest or whatever those things are that we normally may prioritize, like that's where you're going to get the value out of this stuff.
I mean, truthfully, like even with the last series that we did with the endurance series, the only reason that I participated so heavily in that is because I dislike it so much. And, you know, we had a lot of people that had a really hard time with it. You know, we even had members like leaving the community because like, I don't want to do endurance, I don't want to train it. And it's like so sad because it's like, oh man, you have the most to gain. And I'm not even talking about like fitness wise, but for me, whatever, 42, almost 43 years old, I guess by the time this comes out, it'll probably be past my birthday, I'll be 43. But like, I made the decision, it's like, am I just gonna say that for the rest of my life now? Like, I don't like to run, I did enough of that, and so I'm done. Or for 12 weeks, can I like plug back into it to prove like, I still have a choice. I still have a choice of whether I participate in this or not, and I'm not gonna let like history or my uncomfortable way that I don't like this determine that this is just not, I don't do this. You know, and I think that a lot of what you're going to see in these workouts, both in the first month, but throughout the whole thing, is that choice of like, I have a choice for how I attack this and what I get out of it, and how I let it impact me or improve my, you know, mental state when it comes to workouts. So I think that's really cool.
And I just wanted to touch on again that it's like an interesting, and we've talked about this in other series, probably like Sisyphus, but you know, I think self-help books and books that talk about grit and like all that stuff is great. There's like a lot of really incredibly inspiring books. And also that's limiting. Like you have to have an experience to, I think, to really like, okay, what does that look like now? I read the book, I like got the concept, but involving the body in an experience, which is why it's so great that people who do fitness, like this is like a perfect like ground for actually practicing those and like feeling the body be involved in this change, not just like reading about it and understanding it in your head.
Well, like Bill was saying, like, now I just lost my train of thought. But like Bill was saying, like, it translates out into the rest of your life. And, you know, Julian and I have talked a little bit about like going through some hard seasons or whatever in the past couple of years. And we pretty consistently talk about how our fitness and like even training and competing like at a very high level and like showing up on day 4 of the CrossFit Games, like does transfer, like that physical grit or determination, or like I'm so messed up right now, but okay, we're doing thrusters and burpees. All right, okay, like what am I gonna do? Like I'm here, I got to do it. It has transferred of like, whether you're, you know, it's like Rocky, like going back into, okay, I'm going back in, you know, and not everybody's going to get an opportunity to be a professional boxer or to get to that level of any sport. But this is an opportunity like daily to build that for yourself, because it does transfer. Like I wholeheartedly agree that it does transfer to real life, big time.
Agreed.
Talk about the Saturday thing then. What can they expect on the Saturday? Because that was kind of the Wednesday. They look like regular workouts, but there's a different goal.
And we do dive into that a little more in detail. But basically, the idea of Saturday is the first Saturday of this series, you're going to be asked to do a workout that might look pretty simple on paper.
It's 5 minutes.
It's 5 minutes. Might be longer for many. It's short. And really the goal is like, most people probably won't like win the workout on the first try.
How do you win it? You complete
so
it.
If you
go 5 for 5.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like an every minute on the minute situation, and if you hit all of them within the 5 minutes, like minute 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like, well, you're done. Ideally though, for most people, like they're not going to do that week 1. It's going to be very uncomfortable nevertheless, / painful. And we're going to ask you to repeat that for the next 3 weeks. So you're going to do that same very uncomfortable workout 4 weeks in a row. And I think while we all have done obviously workouts that are painful over and over, it's usually not week after week after week. And there's something to be said about that progression and like finishing and be like, I can't do that again. I'm never going to do that again. And then here you are a week later, like I'm going to go back in, and you know, most people will probably make some sort of progress, but that's not necessarily the goal.
Right.
But the goal is just to like show up again, and also not be as attached to like, okay, well, I did it last week, today, this week has to be better, but just being willing to, yeah, like, and there is a failure component in that because maybe you don't hit all of those rounds, but yeah, it's sort of showing up.
It's so interesting because again, like I'm thinking about how this like applies to real life, like because I do a workout like that, and maybe if you guys come from like CrossFit background, it's very similar to like, hey, we're gonna do Fran. That's not what the workout is, by the way, but we're gonna do Fran every Saturday for the next 4 Saturdays. And maybe you've never done it before. And then so you do it the first time and you're like, that was horrible. And now going into the next Saturday, one of 2 things, or there's probably more than 2, but like I'm thinking one of 2 things are gonna happen, / for me, it would probably be like, I would be going back and forth between these 2 things. One would be like, I know when you get to the round of 15 is where it gets horrible.
Right.
And so you go into it with this preconceived notion that it is going to be exactly the same. And so you're like anxious about like, oh, as you're going into the 15s, you're like, I know what this is going to be. And you almost like predict. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy at that point.
Yeah.
Versus like, what's the second thing that I was thinking of is like, oh, well, just, I know this is going to be so horrible. Like, I know this is going to, how this is going to be. Like, I don't want to do this. Da, da, da. And you're just resisting it, fighting it. And instead of letting each time be like a new experience, of course you learn some lessons along the way, but like allowing each one to be different. I think of it also as like your birth stories of like, I remember like, but normally, well, always with birth, you have more than a week between the 2, hopefully. And you kind of forget where this is what you guys are saying because it's 4 weeks in a row. It's still very fresh. Because usually you'll be like, after doing Fran or having a baby, you'll say, I'm never going to do that again.
It wasn't that bad.
I'm never going to, like right after you're like, never again, never again. And then like, you know, with those 2 situations, you get a little bit more removed. You're like, oh, it wasn't that bad. Like, it'll be fine. But then for me, when I get, like, I would do that with Fran or with having a baby. And then I would get, the closer I got to actually doing it again, I start remembering, no, it actually was that bad. Like, what am I doing? How have I gotten myself into this position? And again, so this is like practicing that real life thing that that will happen at some point in some form or fashion in your life of like, I can't believe I'm doing this again, or last time this happened, and overcoming assumptions of what's going to be, you know.
I think there's also something cool about that with one of the things we talk about where it's, you know, every day that you show up to work out, you're probably in a different place. Maybe you got more sleep, less sleep, your stress was more or less, or like whatever the factors are.
Your food, like everything.
Yeah, so you're not identical. You're not just like a carbon copy every time you show up.
You're not a computer.
Right. So
imagine.
You might feel better
AI.
or worse, whatever. Just be like open to these things, just being flexible. And I think that's like, you know, part of that curiosity. But just, and it's not easy. Like we recognize that. We know, we've done this. Like we
You did it yesterday.
And we've done the 4 weeks in a row. We've done it, you know. But I do think from doing that, like there's so much value to it.
And the idea with perseverance or with grit too is not to do one hard thing one time. It's this sort of etymology of perseverance is to continue steadfastly.
Because that's like life, right? Like every individual day of having 3 little kids is hard, but you guess what? I have to do it again tomorrow. Yeah. Like that's the hardest part of being a parent is that it's every single day.
Right. Yeah. And like you have that, and that's why we can make a legitimate claim to this is a behavior, not a performance training, where if you make the contract with yourself that, okay, week after week, I am going to show up and go for it. regardless of what your performance might be, your state, your soreness, your this, your that, it doesn't have to be optimal. It just has to be honest. You've already made that sort of behavioral loop of, I'm going to do it. I'm going to continue. I made a commitment to myself to step into something extremely uncomfortable. You'll be safe physically. Your brain will not think that is true.
Totally.
Your brain will think you're in absolute danger. You're not, though. So like, that's what also is part of this new experience, that you can have this continuation to go into this thing, and you can observe, maybe I'm not such an expert on the things I know. Because when people tell me, like, it's like I could ask somebody, not even ask them, if I can tell them, tell me everything you know, like you absolutely know, that's the borders of their like little limitation. When we stop getting curious. So there is a lot of overlap here, but when we know, and we had somebody who we gave this workout to that bought into that. They said, I know I can't do that. And so you know what they did? They didn't even try. They gamed it. They went every other. And it's like,
they didn't find out where the wall really was.
But they were so rooted in what I know, I can't do that as it's written.
And they might be right, but like, let's see how, what you actually are capable of.
And that's the extent, that's where your limitation is then. Like, and for me at least, and this, we've talked about this idea of like an expansive life, man, there's so much out there. Like, just being humbled in, I'm not as much of an expert and know for a fact all of these things I think to be true. Because those beliefs are also, kind of where your limits are, where your sicknesses can be.
Totally. Okay, so I have a question, and I think maybe again, like this is just my personal therapy appointment with you guys. So yesterday, when you guys were here in town, I was gonna film one of these, and I was like, you guys, I've only gotten like 5 hours, 6 hours of sleep max for like almost a week now. Like, I felt like I was like in a low level state of being like drunk, like out of it mentally, physically. I was like laying on the floor of the bathroom while my kid was going to the bathroom, like waiting for him to be done pooping. Like, I was just out of it. And I kind of came in and I was like, I don't think I should film one of these today. And Julian like made a joke and we laughed. And when I went back inside, I was like, I don't know, like, should I have done it? Should I, what would your advice, because many of our members are going to be like, do I need to be in a certain physical state if possible? Should I do this? Like, I know I usually feel my best on Tuesdays. Of course it's programmed on Wednesday, but should I choose to do it on Tuesday? Should I choose to do it on Thursday instead? Because I know that's usually when I'm doing my best. Or should they not worry about that stuff and just like let it be what it is?
I mean, we probably have different answers to that. I mean,
and I think that's okay.
Yeah, I think like there's not a right answer to it. I think there's value in sometimes, even if you don't feel like it, or you're like, wow, I'm not at my best. I think there's a humility to that. Like, I know my score. Like, for me personally, if I'm the kind of person that really is attached to a score or performance, maybe there is value for me in doing it on a day where it's not going to be my best score. And working through like what it is like, to your point, like, when you haven't slept and then something else happens on top of it and your kid gets sick and, you know, life isn't always ideal. Then there's the other side where like, yeah, you might need a win for yourself that week and be like, you know what, like, I'm gonna wait until I feel really good. So I think you're gonna have different experiences. I would suggest to someone that they don't only do it one way. Try different things. Because
I would say, you know, where I was thinking, and again, like, this is all very personal, because I know that when I start a workout, like, I'm in it and I will, so what I was worried about was like, I'm gonna go for it and I'm gonna like really, and then I'm not gonna be able to work out for like 4 days.
Right.
Because like, this is gonna send me over the edge of the waterfall. But maybe not everybody, that doesn't necessarily apply to everyone. I just wanted to ask that, because I'm sure that question will come up, or people will wonder like, well, you know, can I do it today because I worked a night shift last night, or should I put it on a different day or whatever?
I would say though, like, the caveat with this is, even though we're saying this can have such implication and lessons for your life, it is still fitness. And if it's going to impact your life with your family, your work,
your inability to take care of your children afterwards.
Like that would be the like asterisk on it. Like, we should put one of the, you know, like, don't you know, whatever.
Because there'll be workouts that take you, that are going to require probably more time to recover, both like right after and then like nervous system fatigue maybe the next day is what I'm trying to get at here.
Yeah, if you're trying to really get a lot out of this, maybe you do prioritize these two and make them work in your week where you're like, I really
like
wanna,
Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, like vault.
Yeah, whatever your things are, and be like, okay, the rest of the week I'm going to kind of fill in, but I'm going to prioritize doing these on days, like, because I really want to do these and buy into this program. And for this season, maybe other things fall to the wayside. So I don't think there's like an exact answer, but I think being responsible and being open and trying different things.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, then finally, just for September, after people have done the Wednesdays and they've repeated that Saturday workout 4 times, like what are you guys hoping, or what should they be, you know, looking for themselves to have, like what, and of course everybody's going to be different, but if you could categorize like ideally, or the way that it was designed was to hopefully get you guys to experience this or to gain a little confidence in this area. Can you speak to that, or is it so individual that?
Yeah,
I mean, obviously the perseverance thing.
Right. You know, one of the things we were talking about today after DH and Salvi did the work, one of the September workouts, was like having a sense of pride. Like, I think that's not something that maybe for some people, like they feel that pride if they're maybe new to working out and their goal is just showing up. But I think the more you do this, if you kind of are getting into that, just like rinse and repeat, you maybe lose that, like, wow, I'm really proud of myself for this effort. And I think these can elicit that, like, wow, because it is like a little bit of a barrier, like showing up and trying it, for me personally, like getting that pride, like I'm proud of myself for what I did today. I would say that might be like a byproduct.
Totally. Yeah, I experienced that big time. Yeah. And again, it goes out into the world where you're just a more confident person, because you're like, you overcome, whether it was a mental hurdle that you overcame or a physical hurdle that you overcame to keep going, like there's a huge confidence built, I think.
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, we're super excited to get started with September being perseverance and overcoming failure, or this idea of failure, or thinking of ourselves as a failure. We're going to persevere. And I can't wait for the Grit series to get started. I can't wait to see how it's going for all of you, and to see you guys just, you know, plugging in and seeing what you're made of and overcoming things that maybe you thought you wouldn't be able to. Yeah. These guys have put together some really cool programming, and it's going to be fun.
Yeah. Can't wait to hear about everybody's experience too. Please share.
Yes. Good luck.